Good evening, Kindred. I am Teranz, and welcome back to more Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. Last time in the game, we were brought before the court, and the decision whether or not we were to be executed came up. The prince was going to, but someone volunteered to teach us the ways of Kindred society, and sorry, I just feel like I said volunteer super weirdly. Anyway, and now they're kind of starting to give us a crash course on the basics. So, with that being said, I may have read this at the end of last time, but we're just gonna start from what Sophie said, and then we'll make our decision. Tomorrow, I shall take you hunting, and we will explore this topic further. The blood you're having tonight should be enough to keep you happy for now. You mentioned a beast, so I'm expected to follow your lead now, or what do you mean by hunting? Did you say hunting, as in rifles, hounds, and funny hats hunting? Nothing of the sort. Don't be silly. We are not predators, but we are civilized. And most importantly, there is the masquerade to consider. I will get back to that. Masquerade, the habit or tradition of hiding the existence of vampires from humanity. Designed to protect vampires from the destruction at the hands of mankind, the masquerade was adopted after the medieval Inquisition claimed many kindred unlives. A hunt may take many forms. There are those The hunt may take many forms. There are those of us who seduce kind, up to including the motions of intercourse if you feel like it. Others prefer to feed under the guise of a mugging or assault. Some have herds of retainers for the purpose of feeding. Drinking from sleepers in their home is not uncommon. Blood banks are an option to the few that can tolerate it, though they are frowned upon. Kind is a term for mortals, largely contemptuous. The phrase kindred and kind refer to the world at large, everything. Retainer, a human who serves a vampiric master. Kindred rarely go without at least a few of these, mortals for both convenience and protection. I feel like I'm reading the terms in the rulebook. Anyway, not that that's a bad thing for people not familiar with the world of darkness. Anyway, you'll need to identify these opportunities and decide for yourself whether to pursue them, but make no mistake, you'll have to hunt to survive. The concierge returns, asks for permission to intrude, which Sophie gives with a polite smile, and leans in to whisper in her ear. You note that the gallery is now almost empty. I'm being told the gallery is just about to close, but we still have quite a lot to discuss. We'll go to one of my apartments. My jalopy is waiting downstairs. Come. The smile she puts on makes you remember the way you felt with the Latina. It's not arousing, though, more like magnetic. You find it hard to argue. Even though you're still suspicious of her authority over you, her charm momentarily wins you over. Sophie leads you to a luxurious silver Rolls Royce and invites you to sit in the back. The chauffeur, a broad-shouldered, cleanly shaven middle-aged guy, starts driving immediately. Where did we leave off? I believe I started telling you a bit more about our customs. You've heard the prince refer to our traditions. The chief among them is the masquerade. Traditions are the framework for governance among kindred, mostly the Camarilla, not so much the Anarchs, but they still kind of adhere to parts of the masquerade because it still makes sense. They just don't feel like having the ivory tower rule over them, basically. As you might have gathered from us assembling at a niche gallery after closing time, our comings, goings, and doings tend to be somewhat secretive. We do not advertise our existence. We allow myths and modern fiction to morph and muddle the facts. To the vast majority of kind, we remain bedtime stories and pop culture icons. Say, is that one television show about a vampire angel still popular? You shake your head in confusion. She shrugs and continues talking, looking a bit more dejected than before. Our clandestine ways help us remain safe. Allow us to explain away the occasional trip up to the rational minds of the 21st century. Sorry. Let's try that again. Our clandestine ways help us remain safe. Allow us to explain away the occasional trip up to the rational minds of 21st century humanity, and dictate much of our interactions with mortals. So what's the flip side? So there are perks here. You're a vampire, but you need to keep quiet about it. What's the point? There has to be a flip side, right? Don't get me wrong, we have power. Immense power, influence over mortals. Immortality has its benefits too, of course, but we have many enemies, and some know our weakness as well. For one, sunlight burns us. That's why we rest during the day. You felt it, right? More like being dead than being dormant, isn't it? We have no choice. We are night dwellers, but day sleepers. Some more folk-related threats are just legends or occasionally a minor nuisance. Garlic, running water, even religious symbols don't repel us unless the wielder is uniquely pure and godly. Stakes to the heart, though, that's something to avoid. They do not destroy, but they do paralyze, which under the right circumstances can often be the same thing. You're familiar with the sensation, I'm sure. You see her point to the closed wound in your chest, though the tattered clothes where the stake entered are more of a reminder of your defiance at this point than any pain or discomfort is. For a second, you expect your heart to beat faster. Then you remember it's impossible. That's a reason to have somebody like my trusted driver Gregory, making sure you're safe when you drift away. We have many enemies, and they often know their advantage lies with daylight. The Masquerade sounds like bullshit, so it's good to keep human friends. Vampires watching. Let me get this straight. It's forbidden to let humans know vampires exist, but it's okay to have human slaves who know for a fact who they serve. Sounds like a steaming pile of bullshit. There are degrees to this, of course. Not many of rules of our societies are clear-cut. In some domains, the prince is very controlling and strict about keeping to the letter of the traditions. Domains are an area of vampire influence. Kind of talked about that with the prince. Luckily for you, Prince Panhard allows some leeway on occasion, or else we wouldn't be having this conversation. But to address your qualms, servants are fine as long as they remain loyal. That said, our sect supplies social interactions aplenty, but it doesn't really encourage counting on someone. Support given in exchange for favors. Yes, that's more like it. Long-term solidarity does occur in the Camarilla, but we are a very politicized organization by necessity. Loyalty is to your sire, to your prince, and to the sect. Sect, a group of vampires united under a common philosophy. The two most common are the Camarilla and the Anarch movement. Sire, kindred who created a vampire. Alright. If a servant or mortal family member or whoever else acts against the interests of any of these, their lives are forfeit. So they need to adhere to the masquerade as much as we do. She seems to be lost in thought and falls silent for a while, leaving you to ponder all the things you've learned tonight. It still feels absolutely unreal, but as piece after piece of knowledge falls into place, the image becomes entirely like a logical jigsaw puzzle. Whatever you wouldn't believe on your own, you witnessed. Many questions swarm through your thoughts, but the one you keep returning to is what your place in this new reality should be. The car stops. You're in the city, in front of an old but well-renovated apartment building. We're here. Would you like to see your lodgings? Is it another drab, safe room in an underground parking lot? For my safety and all that? Don't be ridiculous. You are not a sireless fledgling in Kadir's stern grasp anymore. And even he wouldn't hold you there any longer than necessary, I think. Come upstairs. She leads you through a small hall with the night guard who greets Miss Langley with a good evening. You take the stairs up to the second floor. Sophie opens the door to room 209. Inside are all the amenities you could expect from a modern apartment, and some you wouldn't have deemed necessary. Just the previous night, including thick blinds on the windows. The back room has a comfortable looking bed and a thick steel door with several sturdy looking locks, but no windows. Well, how do you like it? It's nice. In this very agreeable way, you know? Lacks character. Well, I would appreciate it if you could hold back the need to redecorate. I am actually really fond of the decor here. Tomorrow I will take you hunting and discuss the blood in more detail. I'll let you get comfortable. The keys are by the television set. I will come to pick you up tomorrow night. Use the back room for rest. You can lock the doors, just in case. It stings a bit when she leaves, like the room suddenly became a few shades dimmer. You inspect the kitchen, hoping to find something to drink. Nothing. No regular food either. Feels strange that Kadir could be a more thoughtful host than your new sire, even if only in that respect. I really wonder if the sheriff might have a hidden side. The sheriff enforces the tradition and ensures that. With nothing left to do, you lie on the couch with the TV playing in the background for company. Columbo reruns. Kojak reruns. President of the United States got himself into serious trouble again. President of the United States got himself out of serious trouble. Pundits start yelling over each other about things that seem a little bit less insignificant just 2 days ago. You start drifting off, reflecting about another night of confusing conversations and worldview-shattering revelations. How many more before you finally understand what happened to you and what you're supposed to do now? You keep coming back to the life you left behind, the people you should contact, the things you want to pick up from your apartment. I wonder when you'll have the chance to arrive. As you start to feel the same tiredness that made you drift into a cold sleep last night, you settle in the back room. The bed is comforting, the lack of windows less so. You leave the light bulb on. Looking at it, you realize it's the closest you'll ever come to staring at the sun on a breezy summer day again. A wave of melancholy overwhelms you. So, 1 second here. A few minutes later, your consciousness fades and you take the plunge into darkness again. Sinking, 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 sinking. Yes, it is. Hunger is... Alright, tutorial. Hunger is at the heart of a vampire's existence. To ignore it is to tempt the beast to take over in its desire to feed. To overindulge in feeding may threaten the masquerade while standing what humanity you have left. In coteries of New York, having high hunger is indicated by a progressively thicker, bloody frame around the screen like the one you see now. As your hunger grows, so does this indicator. Your hunger may increase when you call upon your vampiric powers or when you need to mend your wounds after a fight. Excuse me. When your hunger reaches the maximum level, you'll receive a warning after you complete a piece of the story. Ignore it at your own peril. Some choices might only become visible if your hunger is high enough. Similarly, high hunger may block off some choices, as you will be able to see after pressing continue. Block off option continue. To decrease your hunger, you'll need to feed. Whenever you see a feeding opportunity, you can take the risk to hunt and slake your hunger. Blocked off. You'll need to keep your hunger at bay if you are to uphold the masquerade and survive the nights that await. You open your eyes. The bed isn't warm. The room is filled with artificial light from the ceiling. The solid metal door is closed. Normally, you'd stretch for a bit. On some mornings, you'd probably throw the quilt over yourself and snooze a moment longer. But that was before. The way you woke up now, you are fully conscious. No grogginess, nothing weighing you down, just a nagging need in the back of your head. Hunger, not as severe as last time, but unmistakably there. You get up and open the door to the main room. A digital clock on the TV shows you the time, 9:04 p.m. You walk over to the blinds and retract them cautiously. The only light coming in is NYC's artificial nighttime luminescence. So that's what your waking hours are going to look like now. You miss the sunlight already. Oh, excuse me. You seriously consider just walking out of the apartment and figuring this all out by yourself, but then you come back to the memory of Kadir's exotic sword being raised in the gallery. Maybe sticking around isn't that bad of an idea after all. You keep jumping channels for around half an hour, and then switch to streaming services. Almost as if the universe has a sense of irony, you catch True Blood in the flood of recommendations. The doorbell rings. It's Sophie. Good evening, Teranz. Slept well? It's not really like normal sleep, is it? I suppose it isn't. Some say it's more like being dead, but we wouldn't know, would we? It's no use reflecting on it anyway, except that this is who you are now. You made the right choice yesterday. I can teach you many things about yourself. Your blood, its desires and power. We will begin tonight. You are hungry, yes? I'm sure you are. Our kind always is. There's only one remedy, the blood. The drinks we had yesterday at Elysium are not the usual way you slake your thirst. Elysium is a place where vampires can gather without fear of harm. Court functions in Elysium are strictly kept apart from mortal and surrounded by secrecy, but the Elysium building itself could be a public museum, a gallery, or a club. Berghain is an Anarch Elysium. The Louvre is a Camarilla Elysium. So tonight, I will assist you in your first foray foray into hunting. You need to learn to sense the kind of blood you desire, to understand how you can use the kind's vulnerabilities to your advantage. So let me get this straight. We are predators and humans are prey? That's pretty grim. I know what you feel. I remember the notion, but you will inevitably grow beyond it. You need blood to thrive, but there are many ways to take it, some more humane than others. You'll find that drinking moderate amounts of it regularly will help keep the hunger and the whispers of the beast away. You might think yourself monstrous, but there is a balance to be found here. The kiss gives the kind pleasure. You might remember this from your own embrace. Some can even become addicted to the sensation, but if you do it right, they tend to misremember your feelings. The kiss is an act of drinking blood, usually causes a feeling of ecstasy in mortals. The embrace is how you transform someone to a vampire. After all, vampires do not exist. They are myths, fairy tales, and pop culture mainstays, correct? She gives you a sly, knowing smile. That is why the masquerade is so important and even more crucial when you feed. Fighting people leaves a mark, right? And the victims remember your face. You shouldn't concern yourself with leaving marks. They are easy to conceal. You just need to bite carefully and then lick the punctures closed. That's all there is to it. As for being remembered, like I mentioned, the kiss is an ecstatic experience. So kind can barely recall the details. Even when they do, the city is enormous. You can spend days on the streets and not see the same face twice. Use that to your advantage. Feeding from the same areas repeatedly can be dangerous, but by branching out you risk the ire of other kindred on whose domains you trespass. Luckily for you, NYC is more forgiving in this regard. Kindred is the term for vampires. New York is in somewhat of a unique position. Many of its neighborhoods remain contested or unclaimed. The reason for this is a lesson for another time. Keep the following in mind. Take opportunities to feed when they present themselves these upcoming nights. As long as you hunt cautiously and respect the masquerade at all times, you should be fine. To wit, I want you to come join me for a trip tonight. Come downstairs. Gregory is waiting for us. The busy street fills the air with traffic noise, pedestrian chatter, and a mix of smells that disorientate you momentarily. These warm bodies contain what you want, what you need. You catch yourself. Did you really just think of these people as mere sources of blood? It takes a nudge from Sophie to break your train of thought. The driver opens the door for her and then tips his hat to you, gesturing to the back of the car. The car casually joins the somewhat thin New York traffic. It's still busy in a way only one of the biggest cities in the world can. But compared to the daytime commute, it's a pleasant drive. You barely have time to gather your thoughts and formulate new questions before the car comes to a stop. You're among the tall skyscrapers that make up Manhattan's iconic skyline. Come, Teranz. Park the car, Gregory, will you? The driver just nods and Sophie gets out. You join her and the two of you walk through the glass doors together and take the elevator up. You first notice an empty stage with the instruments of a string quartet still in the back, and take in the few dozen chairs in front of it. The concert seemingly concluded, the patrons, all smartly dressed and posh, are spread out all over the hall. Sophie strides confidently inside, produces an invitation from her purse that she flashes in front of a security guard. You follow close and are let through without issue. Let's start easy. A social setting like this one would usually provide quite a challenge to an inexperienced kindred. We consider this evening a small gift from your patron. I'm hoping to procure for you a willing vessel. Just remember what I told you about taking small sips. This one I have a soft spot for. Don't damage her. Now let's see here. Ah, there he is. You know, let me... Hold on. Okay. Just want to make sure I read the words more or less correct. She notices somebody in the crowd, flashes a heart-melting smile, and suddenly even you feel drawn to her. You haven't thought about it before, but made clear before you in this moment. Sophie is beautiful. Just looking at her is a privilege. Just being with her makes you feel elated. Everybody in the crowd, especially the man who is almost tripping over himself to reach her, clearly agrees. Edgar, I'm so happy to see you. How is your daughter? Is she with you? Oh, there she is. Julie, my girl, come over, please. There's someone I'd like you to meet. The young woman who walks across the hall can't be more than 19 years old. It's clear from her mismatched earrings and the partially faded purple hair dye that she doesn't fit this crowd. Julie, this is Teranz. I think the two of you should get acquainted while I talk business with your dad. Awfully boring stuff, I assure you. I'm positive you'll like each other. The girl gives you a shy smile and nods towards the balcony stairs. You follow, somewhat unsure of what it is exactly Sophie expects you to do. You reach a secluded space from which the entire lobby is visible. All eyes are on Sophie. They listen intently and laugh when she does. Julie saves you the trouble of figuring out the next step. If you're with Sophie, then I guess you're, you know. She puts her wrist to her lips and gives herself a theatrical nod, then looks to you embarrassed, but also hopeful. Yes, I do. Alright, well, I think at this point I am going to call it. We'll see what happens with this scene in the next episode. So, if you enjoyed what you saw, go ahead and I would appreciate if you hit that thumbs up button down below and hit subscribe to stay updated for more Vampire the Masquerade Coteries of New York.